Street, who is a recent appointee to the Citizens Independent Transportation Trust, CITT, and you were nominated and accepted for District 5, which is Commissioner Eileen Higgins.
Correct.
We get that right?
Got it.
Okay. So let's talk a little bit about you as far as your background, where you're from, and where you went to school.
Okay, so I grew up in the Northeast. I grew up in Connecticut. I went to Cornell University for my undergrad. I was actually a molecular and cell bio major. I thought I wanted to be a doctor or maybe a research scientist or something like that. I worked in a genetics lab, and I ended up changing my mind about that and going to law school. I went to Michigan Law, University of Michigan in Ann Arbor. And then after I graduated law school, I did a 6-month legal consultant fellowship with the United Nations Office on Drugs and Crime, and that was in Vienna, Austria. It was an anti-human trafficking and migrant smuggling section that I worked in. In law school, I had done anti-human trafficking work as well, so it was a seamless sort of transition there. And then after that ended, I had 2 clerkships in DC with 2 different judges, one at the appellate level, it was the DC Court of Appeals, but it was DC's Supreme Court. Technically, they only have 1 Court of Appeals, and then a DC trial level. And when I was in DC, that's where I met my now husband. And I had originally bragged to all my friends that I was not dating a lawyer. And in, a year plus into us dating, he tells me, "Hey, did I ever tell you I took the LSAT and I always wanted to go to law school?"
Surprise, surprise, surprise.
Right. So he ended up applying, seeing what would happen, getting into Miami, and I followed him down here.
That's terrific. So why did you apply to the CITT?
So I didn't own a car until the end of 2017. And so all those places that I went to school and lived and worked, I didn't have a vehicle. I was using public transit, walking, biking.
For people that live in Miami, to hear that's like an oddity.
Well, when I moved here in 2014 and told people that I didn't have a car and that I was riding the metro, the reactions ranged from complete shock and horror to somebody literally took me aside and said, "We're worried about you. You can't, it's unsafe to be on the metro." Meanwhile, I'm sitting on there with the free Wi-Fi and the comfortable chairs thinking it's the best thing ever. So the main reason I wanted that I applied in the first place to the CITT is I wanted to use my professional experience and my personal experience to volunteer. It's a volunteer position, and I think that the transportation system has a lot of potential and really impacts how everybody, whether you use it or don't, experiences the city, and I think, or in the county really. So I like the opportunity to make a positive difference.
Prior until excluding the pandemic, the biggest issue before was traffic.
Right.
Now, I know that come September, we're going to be back to whatever normal is, all right? And we can see it already starting. But 40 years ago, plus when the Metro Rail was put up, it was called by some people Metro Fail because nobody would ride it. But one of the things we recognize is that the people that are in a position of authority and leadership have to look down the road 10 years and 20 years and 30 years and create the future of in this case, transportation. So as a person that goes on public transportation, when you're on that rail going back and forth, all right, and coming from a background of really not having a car, what was that like when you came down here for our transportation system? So
if you need to go to somewhere that's within walking distance of a metro stop here, you're fine. You can, and if you live within walking distance or some reasonable way to get to a metro stop, you're fine. The problem is that, the bus system, the trolley systems, there could be so much better. So it was more, the experience here was sort of frustrating, if anything. And now, I would think, okay, I want to go wherever. And in the other cities that I lived in, it wasn't a question of could I get there. I just needed to look up what the map was, figure out which mode I'm taking, where I'm transferring, and I'd get there. It wasn't even a thought that I couldn't possibly get somewhere without a car. But here it really did restrict the places I could get safely and reliably.
Apartments near those, so people be closer to, obviously closer to transportation. So there may be lots of folks that move in there that have no cars, or maybe just one in the household there. And the county recently started the BRT project. From it's 25 or 30 miles long, and that should certainly help in the transportation. People's frustrations concerning traffic and sitting in traffic is just enormous. It is back to that conversation. So what does the CITT actually do, and where does the funding come from for that?
So the CITT was created in November of 2002, I believe, obviously long before I was ever in Miami. And the main goal of it is to oversee the half-penny transit surtax spending and to implement the People's Transportation Plan. And that includes the SMART plan, the strategic, I'm going to mess this up, but I think it's like Strategic Miami Area Rapid Transit Plan.
We're pretty close. Our researcher back there said, yes, that's it. Right.
I wasn't sure if it was Metro or Miami, but I think it's Miami Area Rapid Transit. So it's overseeing, it's an independent volunteer citizen board, like I said, to oversee the spending of that half-penny surtax. What I didn't quite realize until recently is how much of that half-penny tax goes to the municipalities. I think it's something like 20 or 23%. And that gets us those trolleys in the city of Miami, and I believe Coral Gables and some other municipalities have trolley systems as well, or are implementing them.
Well, as you know, in deference to my friends on the county commission and the old ones there was some misspending of some of that half-cent sales tax, and the frustration was pretty high. But it looks like it's under control now. So who else is on the CITT board?
So it's a 15-member board.
Mm-hmm.
So there's one person from each of the 13 county districts, and then one person appointed by the county mayor and one person appointed by the Miami League of Cities, I believe. So, besides me, I know the more recent appointments, I believe, are Meg Daly. I know there's another appointee who's also from the city of Miami, Eli Steers. Ashley Gant is a member. She's also a lawyer. Peggy Bell. Do you want me to list them all?
No, okay. That's fine.
All...
so as of, we recently ran a story about you in our papers. So according to the story, there's still 2 seats that are open, District 3 and District 10.
Yes.
All right. And I wish I remember whose districts those were. But if you're in District 3 or 10, all right, folks, you can apply. You can go to the website, and you can check on the recruitment tab, and they can go in and they can apply.
That's what I did. So.
All right. And tell us about how that occurred. All right. What was in your brain? You said, hey, today I'm going to go do that. So I don't want to, I spent a lot of time sitting at bus stops and trolley stops. So I thought a lot about transit in Miami, and like you said, traffic. I have both sat in it and am aware of people's distress about it. And it just seems like both a simple way to deal with that, but also it's very complex. So I have a lot of ideas about how transit and transportation and mobility can be improved. And I think that my commissioner, Eileen Higgins, is also a transit writer, and I really respect what she's been trying to do. And she is, or I don't know how recently she has been appointed, but she's on the subcommittee for the Board of County Commission. And she went and gave a presentation to the CITT earlier this year. And so I saw that and I thought, oh, let me see who's on this board for my district. And I saw nobody. So I sent my application into the CITT and then was accepted. I didn't know the process. I just saw on the website, what email to send it to and what application to fill out. So that's what I did. So we want to know, when you saw it, did you stand up and cheer? You say, yes, I'm going to be able to be,
No, because I had no idea that I would be picked and I didn't know how it worked. Apparently now I know there's a nominating committee within the CITT who then presents, reviews the applicants and gives 3 or 4 to the county commissioner, and they pick somebody that, of the group that has been approved by the CITT. But I told a friend that I had applied. I didn't really want to tell a lot of people. I was just trying to keep it to myself, but I told a friend and he was like, "Oh, you're not going to get it. You have to be an insider to get on that, anything like that. It's all very, you have to be someone's family member essentially." And I was just sort of was a little dejected, but that's not the case. So,
and lots of times we do need in think tanks somebody from the outside that can break up that group think and be able to shift it around, at least so people can look at another vision.
Right. And I'm here, obviously I can't speak on behalf of the entirety of the CITT,
right.
And definitely not about decisions or things that were done before I was on it. But I do think that it's important, no matter what, for everybody to just, whatever happened in the past, whether it was, good, bad, ugly, just move forward. How can we do the best with what we have?
So if a constituent here in Miami-Dade County has some questions or complaints or suggestions about traffic, other than just being frustrated, all right, researcher, where should they send that? Their questions. Should they send it to the county government? Should they send it to the CITT? Where would you like somebody to say, hey, here's what's going on, and what about this idea?
If there's something that they want us to explore, they can write to citt@miamidade.gov.
Okay. All right. CITT so CITT@miamidade.gov, and they can go on there and also see the other board members. All right.
On the website.
Yeah,
Yeah, that's how I, it says the CITT is a 15-member board, and then you go to board members, and at the time I applied, I think there were 11. So that was how I realized there was an opening, perhaps.
So looking down the road in your personal opinion, do you think there are going to be a lot more of these apartments, homes are going to be close to transportation, public transportation, and that the county, I know they're looking at it, is try to make it more conducive for people not to have cars? How's that going to work for Miami-Dade County, where in the past, if you didn't have a car, you didn't get around?
So in other places like DC, in almost every single metro stop, you get off and there are shops and places to live and places to eat and things to do within walking distance of the metro stops. And that is the case in some of the metro stops here, but not all of them. So to the extent that I think what the county is trying to do is to capitalize on what is there. And, to the extent that we want to have, or the county wants to have, more car optional people using transit, they need to put them near the most functioning, reliable transit system, which right now is the metro. So that only makes sense. Putting some apartment building, in the middle of nowhere isn't going to help anybody, because they still need to get to the metro rail.
And as we look to our transportation system, and everybody's involved in that, it's not you're a recommending board, you have some ideas, you look to the vision and the county commission and paid staff and everybody. It certainly is a gigantic issue. It's not a matter of just changing the stoplight so it's 5 seconds longer, because that means it's 5 seconds shorter on the other side.
Right.
And I do want to stand up, and I know it's probably not a CITT issue, but I do want to stand up for the people in West Kendall who are frustrated. All right, and they have to put up with a lot of traffic, and the West Kendall Parkway has been, I think it's off the board. All right, and the people out there are really frustrated. And so my recommendation is, if you're still frustrated, speak to your county officials, all right, and say, we need some relief out there. So how does the CITT get its orders? How does that process work for you when you're sitting around in a room? Or you don't have to discuss any particular thing, but so how does that work? All right, you go down and you have an agenda.
How do the meetings work?
Yeah.
So there are monthly meetings, and there is an agenda, and it's, I only have been to one. So the one that I went to, and I believe they're all similar, is, there'll be some reports from whether it's the municipalities on their use or projects related to the use of the transit surtax funding. And then there's also agenda items, actual action items. So some project where, surtax funds are proposed to be used. Mm-hmm. And as a board member, we are all expected to review the agenda packet, the supporting materials, the documents, and determine if it meets within the People's Transportation Plan and the goals, and then obviously what we vote on whether to spend the surtax money as proposed by the agenda item.
We do appreciate that part of that sales tax, because South Miami, we're in the city of South Miami, we just had a new road put in right behind our office over there, and the city speaks about money for improving our roads, and it does make a difference, not just to the transportation and the movement of a car, but it also improves neighborhoods, and it's a good look, and it's attractive, and it causes people to pay more attention to their homes. All right. The issue about bicycles on roads here on 64th Street, between 62nd Avenue and 57th Avenue, down this street. I believe it was money from this fund. They put in a new road. They put in bike paths. They're green along the side, and there's actually a concrete divider, a little thing. It's really tremendous.
Makes a huge difference.
It's like huge difference. We know that people that are on bicycles in Dade County, there's been some issues, people being hurt and killed, all right? And it's a real, it hurts a lot.
Yeah, it's an unnecessary tragedy.
Right. So not speaking from a CITT point, but from a personal point, and when we see people out on the bicycles, we can't ever figure out, are they like a vehicle, or are they on a bike and they can go run the stoplight? Nothing's more infuriating, right? So we need to give them their due, that they're there, right? But then they go through the light, which is rather cumbersome. All right. So what's your personal view of the cyclists who are trying to do both sides of that?
I mean, look, obviously, all the vehicles on the road are supposed to follow the rules of the road. That's not really a debate. But I do think that it's hard as a cyclist, because especially, for example, on Coral Way, there are bike lanes, but it's really just a bike painted on the right lane where cars are going 40 plus sometimes. There really is no space. And so that's inevitably going to cause a backup, inevitably going to cause the drivers to be angry, the bikers to feel unsafe. So, in other places there are, bike systems where you can look up, okay, I'm here, I want to get here. How can what is the safest bike route? And usually it's not on the main road unless it's separate. There's an actual divider or some sort of separate lane for the bicyclist to avoid that, what you're talking about.
So, we have to sort of all live together on this, but frequently I usually drive a truck and I see the cyclists on the right side. I'll go either 2 blocks ahead of them before I turn right, or wait to turn right, because God forbid somebody should run into me or me into them.
Right.
So it's for non-cyclists, it's really it's sort of a scary proposition, and I can't imagine what it'd be like. I have friends that cycle a lot, all right, but they usually are down in Homestead, but it's still in the sense of they're just less cars.
Right.
So what do you see as, and you personally, as a vision, what the government can do to continue helping these things to work together?
I think, like I said, not making a car and a bike share a lane. And even if the divider isn't, like you said, I think you were talking about the 67, yes. That, it's not like a 3-foot concrete barrier, but they started putting in, I saw these little armadillos. The plastic divider poles aren't beautiful, but they're there. But just thinking how this can actually work, because it can. There are definitely ways it can work, but just painting the bike lane that's not enough. And that's just asking for more problems, frankly.
So we know that from what I recall, when the county puts on new roads, they take into account a bike lane on there, because at some point there may be some connection. Obviously, that's the beginning of having it safer, for everybody. But I can tell you that when I look at the money that's being spent by the cities through the county, through the tax, and I see the roads that are being done, I think the traffic circles are also, it's really tremendous and really improving the outlook of neighborhoods. And I'm just going to tell you that where I see it, people pay more attention to their homes, to the swale, to the trees that are out there, and it causes a big improvement. And yes, it can really serve to improve how people look at their lives and more walkable. Let's talk about, if we could, can you add anything in concerning the BRT plan?
What do you mean by add anything in?
Well, if there's something new that we haven't heard about, which is a $300 million project, it's local, state, and national funding
Right.
on that. One of the big issues, again, you speak for personal, all right? The big question people had, is it a bus or is it a train, all right? And some people are saying, well, if it looks like if it's a train, more people will go on it. And I haven't quite figured that part out versus a bus, all right?
Yeah.
Is it mean because it's a fancier method of transportation that people feel better? Any
I mean,
thoughts
I'm not
about that?
I can't even forget about the, I don't want to speak for the CITT
Yes.
when I can't, but I also don't want to speak for other people, how they feel. My perspective on it is, it seems like, to Mary,
Yes.
personal,
Yes.
that it is the best solution given the options and funding available now. And I also think that an important thing to remember about it personally for me, because I have thought, okay, if I lived down south and I had been promised rail, and then was told, oh no, just kidding, you're not getting rail, I would also be upset. But one thing about it that I heard, I hope it's true, I believe it's true, but someone can fact check me, is my understanding is that the stations that are being built, well, let me back up. Number one, my understanding was that there wasn't a way to really get the funding that was necessary
That's
because
true.
of the lack of population on the line or something like that to get the rail. And then the second thing that I think is very important that maybe gets overlooked, and again, other people can fact check me, is my understanding is the stations will be such that if in the future
Yes.
the funding can be gotten
Yes.
or achieved or received, whatever, applied for and qualify, that it could be converted into rail. So for me, it's, if I lived down south, I would think, okay, yes, I feel like I was promised one thing and then had sort of a switch on me, but at the same time, I would rather have this than nothing.
And-
as a person who
yes.
wants to not
and
use my
agreed.
car.
And agreed 100%. And that's looking down the future, in the future we spoke about earlier, looking 5 and 10, 15 years down the road, and all those things will be in place, all right? And what I understand is going to happen once that thing is going, all right, the county commission is going to say, hey, federal government, we got this thing and it's working, all right? And we want you to change the minimum number of riders because we will get more people. And this is what we are doing as a county. I think it's going to be great, all right? Because the way you win wars is by cutting off roads and airports and train stations. This will serve as a great connector for the people that have felt neglected in Florida City and Homestead. And it will at some point take cars off the road, all right? And maybe transport people put aside the naysayers, and is certainly entitled to their opinion. I think this is a a gigantic step, all right, towards the future, and people, I think, are going to enjoy it. I think there's 12 or 14 stations, and they're going to be very pretty. It's going to be, when you just step right into it, I think that it's going to be wonderful.
Right. I don't think my understanding is it's not going to look or feel like what you think of when you hear bus.
Yes.
That it'll be some hybrid. And I also, it's good to, however many years ago when the SMART plan was first made, I doubt that the technology for this type of bus rapid transit existed anyway. So I also don't think that we should bind ourselves blindly to, some plan from the past when we have more tools at our disposal now.
So, and that's part of in government planning and roads, which are sometimes done, decades ahead. All right. And so I think that it's wonderful. I'm glad it got off the ground. Really happy the government this go around is really making it happen. I know those things started many years ago. So I'm really excited for all of us that are going to be impacted by that. And frequently when people, we're in South Miami, and people from down south, when they apply for work, I said to them, how are you going to get here? How long is it going to take you? What is your stress level going to be? And we frequently tell people, if you live out west or the south, you don't have to start at 9 o'clock. You can start at 10 o'clock so you can miss that traffic. Because if you're hurrying every day to get here and you're doing with that traffic, you're going to come in and you're fried and it's going to take you 30 minutes and you're thinking about going home and all that traffic. Versus if you're let somebody else do the driving, it's amazing.
It's a different experience.
And I never did taxi cabs, but I started doing Uber when needed, and it's wonderful. You're playing on your phone. You're like, oh, I guess we're near.
Right.
And I think there will be a lot of people that can be excited and yet relaxed to do that. So when did you realize that you wanted to volunteer, to do things and to do something for the bigger picture?
It wasn't, I don't think there was like a moment where I realized it. I just think that, as my husband and I lived here, we just got more involved, met more neighbors, and the CITT in particular, I applied for it because I like that it's an independent body and it has a clear, tangible goal that I think is very important and that I have something to offer. So I wouldn't say I, woke up 3 days ago and decided I wanted to help. I just feel like I felt like I had something to offer and I applied, and I guess people agree.
So you mentioned that you thought you wanted to get into medicine before.
Right.
All right. When did you start recognizing that, even though you changed your mind? All right.
When did I start thinking that I wanted to go into medicine?
Yes.
Oh, I mean, I was in high school. I just was thinking about what did I want to do. And a couple of my family members are physicians. So I didn't really think much about it. It was sort of like, oh, I can do it. I'm good at it. Maybe I just
lots of people wonder when we start forming those ideas and what's his name? Michael Jackson, when he was this big, wasn't that his name? The dancer, all right, the singer. When he was this big, you knew, and he knew what he wanted to do. Right?
Yeah.
So when you said you were in high school, but you had family members that were in the health arena.
Mm-hmm.
So and the reason I'm bringing it up because there might be some really young person that's watching this wondering when they're going to externalize what they want to do. So were you like in high school? Is that 15 years old, or was there some observation before that internally before you started expressing it?
I don't remember. I think probably it was probably more when I started college and had to pick a major, and I was trying to decide, am I going to do chemistry, bio, or anthropology? What do I want to do? Right. And of course, back then I really thought that, the major you pick you're sort of locked in, which isn't really the case at all, obviously, although I do use what I learned. And then it wasn't really until later on in college, after it was too late to change my major, and it didn't matter because I did enjoy everything I did. But I did this. I mean, we're getting really way off topic with CITT, but I did I had this internship with University of Connecticut one summer, and I worked in a lab for 4 days a week, and then I shadowed a physician of a different specialty every Friday. And each Friday, I kept thinking, oh, I'll like the next one. I'll like the next one. I'll like the next one. And then at some point I realized I was like, okay, there's obviously something here that I'm not, it's not resonating as, it's one thing to be able to do something, but it's another thing to choose to do it. And I mean, I was an organic chemistry tutor. This wasn't like, oh, I wasn't getting my pre-med scores, so I had to pick something else. I had the option to do anything. And then I just realized it wasn't really the best use or the most fulfilling thing for me.
Not too long ago, 40 years ago, after I finished school, my father says, "What do you want to do?" And I said to him, and it's now on the wall of the building here. I said to him, "I don't know what I want to do for the rest of my life." I was 20. Imagine that mindset. He said, "Why don't you do whatever you want to do the best you can do, and then when you change your mind, go do something else."
Yeah.
So the reason I bring it up is because there's somebody watching you right now that's sort of at that point. Am I stuck being in the family business? Am I stuck being a doctor or a lawyer or a candlestick maker, whatever it has? And that it's okay to change your mind.
Sure.
Right? Just like one point you said, I want to get on this, I'm going to apply to the CITT and I want to do that. I have something to give, right? And so there are people out there that want to be involved in the community. And I think that's wonderfully that you're there. And I wish you, and we wish you lots of good luck with that. And give your heart to it because you're going to make a difference, all right? And I wish all of the board members there good luck with this massive issue that everybody that's here is involved somehow with that.
Right. Not only a massive issue, but an issue that we alone don't control. I mean, the CITT has a role in it, but it's not like we're not the Board of County Commissioners. We're not the Department of Transportation or the state of Florida. So, we're going to do our best with what we can. That's the goal.
So stand up and be counted and voice your opinion.
Yes.
And we hope that things improve for all of us. Again, so if there's 2 districts that are still open, all right, they
Yes.
can apply at CITT at miamidade.gov.
www.miamidade.gov/CITT.
Okay.
Yeah.
So
I was just looking for it.
all right. So I think we have it up on the board. Do we? Can we put?
miamidade.gov/CITT.
Okay, that's great.
And there's a member recruitment tab on the left. And then you can learn about the requirements and apply.
That's great. Mary Street, about a recent applicant and accepted into the CITT of miamidade.gov. Congratulations.
Thank
to
you.
And continued success. And thank you, our researcher, fact checker, and all
Yes.
that good stuff. Folks, again, this is Michael Miller with Live with Miami's Community News. And Stephen, thank you for producing the show. Thanks, guys.